And you did tell it to do music, right?
Not yet.
Oh, okay, well, if you don't, we'll have a problem.
Now it's on. Music is on.
All right.
There we go.
Good to see you. Good to be seen.
Was for more than I knew how to turn
Well,
the
that
technology on.
well, we're all known for something, Brent.
Lauren,
Good morning.
Morning, Lori.
Morning, Lori.
Lauren, the guys up in Berserkly, as you called it, got my email fixed, I think.
Okay. Good.
There's some bright people in Berserkly.
It took them 3 or 4 months to get it, but I think this time they got it.
Good.
Well, the theological school I went to couldn't afford the real estate in Berkeley, and now they're in Oakland. They've lost that sophisticated name.
I'm still in basic black.
You didn't get the memo.
I didn't get the memo.
Well, you can't take them off.
No.
You used to be able to walk to the UC campus from the theological school, as known as Holy Hill. There were several in that area, and the students can't find housing that they can afford now in Berkeley. So if the school doesn't have housing, it's a real problem. Unless they camp out on the street in tents, which they do in the Bay Area quite a bit.
That whole coast camps intense.
Right.
Very sad.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
I brought the State Society report that I have written, and I brought Wallace in person, and Lynn said she would scan it and send it out to everybody. And I thought next time on the meeting, you could address it.
Sue, thank you for my birthday greeting this week.
It doesn't have to be retyped, and then I can.
Although
A little late.
I quit having birthdays many years ago, but people keep reminding me.
Well, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers.
Dave's got a birthday this week.
Oh, happy birthday.
He calls it the Montana speed limit birthday.
Okay.
I have a theological question for your perusal, everybody. Is time an illusion? Is time simply where you are in the universe?
You've been reading Einstein?
Yes, in fact, I've been reading that biography by Walter Isaacson.
Okay.
I don't know if I have time for that.
There's a small one out about that he's involved in, talks about time. It's pretty narrow. I don't remember the exact title to it. But
Well,
he talks about time from different perspectives.
He also is reported to have said near the end of his life, when a friend of his passed away, the past, the present, the future, it's all an illusion.
So then life is an illusion.
Maybe.
I don't know, I'm not Einstein.
That's the best answer. Maybe.
Some of us have become disillusioned.
Yeah, the point is to become disillusioned, did you say?
Yes, sir. Some of us have already.
Let be.
Disillusioned.
No, let it be.
Oh, let it be.
Let it be. Oh, now we're gonna get into Beatles songs.
Yeah.
Einstein and the Beatles.
Yeah, the guy
I
who used to
didn't
work,
think that Leo did that.
guy who worked for us, his favorite
Yes, they
saying was,
did,
"It is
like
what
me."
it is." You know, that was his answer to everything. It is what it is. It is what it is.
There's a show on Science Channel called How the Universe Works. And it's continuing series, they get into different things, as well as they also have how the earth works. And so much of that stuff is so far out in space and over my head that it hardly makes any sense to watch it. Black hole and billions of miles away, and billions of years that it's taken for this to occur, and all that sort of stuff.
That's why I prefer to watch Meekham's Gone Farming. See tractors for sale. I can understand that.
I watch those too to bring me back to reality.
What is reality?
What did you have in your coffee this morning, Lori?
I haven't had that much coffee, yeah.
Quakers have a very honorable tradition of science and scientists who are Quakers.
Well, one was just in the US, Jocelyn Bell, who was one of the ones who, as a graduate student, discovered quasars. And because she was a graduate student, her name did not appear on the paper. So her professor got all the credit for it. Wow.
I met her in North Carolina
Did you?
at Triennial.
Yeah.
And yeah, she told me that story. She didn't get any credit for it at all. She was, I think, at Oxford at the time.
Yes. And she went on to be clerk of Britain Yearly Meeting for like 6 years. A very, very active and devout Quaker, well known as a physicist.
The Einstein's first wife is not given enough credit for all the work that she did to help him publish 5 seminal papers in 1905.
Not to mention put up with him.
Eventually she didn't put up with it.
Wow.
That's her thing.
Yesterday at William Penn, our speaker was Miriam Kamadi, who was from Kenya, graduated as the first African student from Kenya and from Penn in 1964. And she was the speaker who she graduated with degree with a major in math, physics, and biology, and became a World Health Organization expert, and has just this past year was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize because of all her work in bringing together people of governments and health organizations to do something about world health. She's just an amazing woman. She's
Wow.
80, 83, 84. And I didn't know till yesterday morning at breakfast that she had, when she finished at William Penn, she was here all 4 years or three or 4 years. And when she returned to Kenya, Dan was there doing his alternative service teaching agriculture, and she knew him, and she her class at Penn had her friend was Marion Bean, and she was here at breakfast yesterday, and it just was such an interesting thing to know that Dan had met her, was friends with her in Kenya, and when she returned to Kenya after being at William Penn for 4 years, she rode a matatu, a bus, to as far as the matatu would go, but she lived way out in the bush, and she knew Dan had a car, so she asked him to take her the rest of the way home. And I didn't even know they knew each other. So when I showed up Friday night for dinner, she looked at my name tag and she said, Bean, are you connected to Dan Bean? Is he here? It was just kind of, oh, yeah, he is. Well, I've met her 2 or 3 times before, including in Wichita when she was at the Triennials in Wichita. I don't think she remembered me at all, but she remembered him.
Were you a freshman when she was a senior?
I was, I didn't come till the 65, so I missed her.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
But she
real
did a
intelligent.
really wonderful job of saying, the way in Penn was where I got my start, and it might happen to you that you'll do something significant in the world if you keep faithful to it.
That little farm girl.
Did we have any smart people in our
Morning, Jonathan and Jet.
Morning. How are
Morning.
you?
Norma and everybody over there. Hi, Nancy.
Well, welcome everyone. Happy Mother's Day. All those who are mothers, have acted like mothers, have been surrogate mothers, whatever. The world is blessed by your presence. Friend of mine was teasing me because I said, they said, what are you talking about for Sunday school? I said, we're talking about Lot's daughters and their nefarious deeds. And they go, you couldn't, oh, Lisa, it was our daughter Lisa. And she goes, couldn't you have found something from Ruth? Or was it? Well, it just was the luck of the draw. But are there announcements? Next week is monthly meeting, I believe.
Oh, set that up. You might want to mention John Collins.
On Wednesday at 10 o'clock at Valley Mills.
Okay.
And I have written up a State of Society report for West Newton Quakers. And each of us here have a copy to take a look at, and hopefully next week at monthly meeting can approve it. Lynn has said that she will scan what I've written up and send it out to each of you to take a look at it, make suggestions. Hopefully it'll go just as it is and it won't have to be retyped, but anyway, that is the plan, that she will send it out so each of you can see a copy of what has been written.
Yeah. So that'll be on the agenda for next week's monthly meeting. If you think of other items that should be on the agenda, please send them to me so I can put them on, other than the usual ones. Are there joys, concerns to share?
Brent,
Yes. Betty?
we just heard last night and this morning from John Connell that his wife Kelly was at a baseball game yesterday and fell, shattered one wrist and injured her elbow on the other arm.
Mm.
Oh dear.
Those arms.
That'll put her in a difficult position.
Mhm.
Well, I had the joy of being at Wilmington's graduation yesterday. It's the first time since I graduated that I was there. A number of years ago, I graduated. So to walk in this time as a Board of Trustees member with all that silly getup on was kind of interesting because I sat in the front row again, which is where I sat when I graduated because of being in the B's. And I looked over and I thought, that's exactly where my parents sat all these, years ago. I won't say how many, but it was a very nice ceremony, and the student speakers were especially good. So, having survived the pandemic like the William Penn students, quite an accomplishment.
Well, I went to a really great jazz concert Wednesday night at Decatur, put on by the students, and it was really good. And Drake is in jazz too, and was informed that he will be in Jazz 1 next year.
Wow. Great.
Well, let's hold these things in God's love and light, and each other in God's love and light as we center. Lynn is the worship leader today, so she will lead as she feels led.
Well, as we all know, today's Mother's Day. And I was kind of curious to find out what the history of Mother's Day was, so I'm going to share some of that with you today. Obviously, in the United States, it's a day set aside to honor our mothers, and around the world in quite a few different places as well. There have been days all throughout history honoring mothers, but our traditions in the United States that we're familiar with now got started in the early 1900s by a woman named Anna Jarvis. Prior to the establishment of the official day, Anna's mother, Ann Reeves Jarvis, started Mother's Day work clubs to teach women in her area of West Virginia how to properly take care of their children. Later, the day became known as Mother's Friendship Day, as a way of encouraging mothers to meet with former Union and Confederate soldiers to promote reconciliation. Eventually, by the 1870s, Julia Ward Howe, who wrote, we know because she wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic, wrote the Mother's Day Proclamation, which was a call to action asking mothers to unite in promoting world peace. Following the death of her mother, Ann Reeves Jarvis, Anna Jarvis conceived of Mother's Day as a way of honoring the sacrifices mothers made for their children. She gained financial backing necessary to promote her idea from a department store owner, John Wanamaker, in 1908, and the first official Mother's Day celebration was held in Grafton, West Virginia. In 1914, President Woodrow Wilson signed a measure officially establishing the second Sunday of May as Mother's Day. Interestingly enough, though, Anna Jarvis then spent the rest of her life trying to undo all of her hard work for the holiday that she had conceived of as a personal celebration between mothers and their families, because it had become so commercialized by all kinds of businesses, candy companies, florists, card companies, all those we're familiar with now. By the time of her death in 1948, she had disowned the holiday altogether and even lobbied the government to see it removed from the American calendar. As we know, though, the final campaign that she was involved in was unsuccessful. And the day is even more commercialized now than it was during her lifetime. However, that doesn't mean it's an unimportant day. All of the women here are mothers or stepmothers. All of us here have had mothers. Many of us here have had an assortment of adopted mothers who have helped guide us through our childhoods and into adulthood. I know my life is much richer for the loving guidance I have received over the years from women who have mothered me at various times, and I'm sure many of you have had that same experience. Many of you also have been those adopted mothers to younger people other than your own biological children. Those relationships have enriched all lives involved, I'm sure. As I looked for scriptures appropriate to Mother's Day, I found that there really aren't any that seemed all that appropriate. Some that are often used for Mother's Day are the verses in Proverbs 31 about virtuous women, but those all seem to promote a level of perfection that's just kind of feels unreachable. Here's what those verses say, though. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her, saying, many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring praise at the city gates. Now, maybe Proverbs 6:20-21 is a little more realistic. My son, keep your father's commands and do not forsake your mother's teachings. Bind them upon your heart forever. Fasten them around your neck. These verses from Proverbs 6 are good advice for all of us. Remember the teachings of our parents, whether we're thinking of our biological parents or those we've adopted along the way. Psychologists say that children gain their knowledge of God from experiencing their parents' love. A child whose parents are loving and kind is more likely to experience God as loving and kind. So the verses in Ephesians 5:1-2 could be taken to speak of Mother's Day. Be imitators of God, therefore, as dearly loved children, and live a life of love just as Christ loved us and gave himself for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. Finding hymns that directly relate to Mother's Day was also a challenge. I've heard some people change the words to Faith of Our Fathers to include mothers, but I've never liked that hymn for some reason. It just seems dark and gloomy, so we're not going there today. Instead, what I've decided to do is to play some favorites of my mom's and my grandmother's and a few of mine thrown in. So while they don't specifically relate to Mother's Day, there is a slight connection.
Even though grandma didn't play music.
Sitting here thinking about Lynn's music and introduction, I was, of course, thinking about my mother, who passed about 6 years ago this week. She was the person who introduced to me a love of music. We always had music in her house, but it was always recorded. She didn't play. She'd been a dancer, and so loved music, and so always had it. First modern recording I recall, she was very eclectic in her musical styles, was Dave Brubeck's Take 5. Quite adventurous piece of music at the time, and I fell in love with jazz and symphonic music. She took me young people symphonies, that sort of thing. She also engendered my love of reading. She loved to read all sorts of things. Some of you have met her over the years. She was not very big. And a lot of people thought she was sort of frail, fragile at times. But when I was 13, my dad had a severe industrial accident, almost died, had a skull fracture. And it was Mom who took us through the next 5 years. With his brain injury, you never knew what Dad was going to be like, for one thing. It was Jekyll and Hyde-ish. But Mom made sure that we made it through. She never worked after she got married. She worked at home and got us all through all that sort of stuff. And at the time, I just took it for granted. But I look back now and I think what incredible strength she had to have, and also faith, because we had our church community surrounding us and lots of surrogate parents during that time too, because Mom would be getting worn out taking care of Dad, and folks would just come pick us up and take us for the day or a week. So a little salute to Joanne.
I'm sure that many of you who came through West Newton Friends meeting knew my mother as one of the ongoing Sunday school teachers for children. God Garnet Barnett. Yes, she had a rhyming name when she got married, Garnet Barnett. And she taught Sunday school forever and ever, and was always remembered for her constant care of children of the meeting, as well as her own children. And she worked so hard being a farm wife and living in a very old house. We grew up without much electricity, no indoor plumbing, and yet she managed to take care of everything that we needed. She had a big garden. She did lots of canning. She helped my dad when he put up hay. She would lead the horse on one side of the barn while he was on the other, putting up hay and telling her when to let the horse go and pull the rope. There were just so many things that she did beyond a snippet of being a mother. I appreciate that.
Well, we know it's time that folks are gonna, some have other obligations and need to leave, so we bid them farewell and go with God. And the rest of us who can will continue in unprogrammed worship. Well, if all hearts are clear, we'll close meeting for worship. Good to see everyone. Well, Jet got down off the chair, so he must have closed meeting for worship. He was there a minute ago.
She's in the lab now, so yeah, she's
Oh,
wrapped it up.
Great. Well, have a good week. If you can, we'll be doing Sunday school in about 15 minutes. So,
Bye.
a very interesting story today.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing what social engineering thing you can pull out of this.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Maybe he's not going to.
2 more